Well, thank you, Amy. Let me set myself up here and make sure can everybody see this
Yes.
title page? Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Beacon, for this opportunity to talk to my friends and colleagues at Beacon and share some of my experience with our clients, and just to let you know, Innovo works with small to mid-sized B2B companies. And basically, we figure out why sales are not growing the way they could and should. And then we determine the specific action plan that they need to turn things around. And lastly, and most importantly, we roll up our sleeves and help them execute. So with our client base being small to mid-sized B2B companies, they don't always have the breadth of resources to do the things that we're able to do for them. You know, we come from a lot of experience growing businesses, and we bring that to these smaller to mid-sized businesses that are really focused on getting to that next level. So that's enough about me and Innovo. I did want to make a shout out to a couple of our members. One, Amy and Turner Price, CFO, Innovo, is a client of theirs. They do an excellent job. I know Scott McMartin, apparently his firm, On Time Edge, is a new supporter of Beacon, and I've referred On Time Edge to a manufacturing company that's been a client of ours for a couple of years, and they've done an outstanding job of actually getting their production system much more efficient so they can get more of their products out on time. So their revenues were up 56% 2 years ago. This year, they'll be up another 30%. So they're killing it. So thank you, Scott, and On Time Edge. And of course, Mr. Timmons, always a good coach and colleague. So with that, let me just get going here. And let's see. All right. So what do we want to talk about? And we're going to discuss what we're going to do to improve sales at your company, right? And companies. And the world has changed. That's for sure. And guess what? It will continue to change. And why do some businesses do well when there's change and other businesses struggle? And of course, there's lots of reasons for that. It's not always their inability to adapt. It may be the markets they're in or the products they have aren't as relevant, or the competition has come into play. But the fact is, we all have to evolve with change. Otherwise, the train will pass us by. So first of all, let's talk about what is actually happening and has happened, and frankly, will continue to happen, that will impact our ability to be successful in growing revenues in our companies. First and foremost, if you have sales folks in your company, the reality is in B2B companies that only 34% of those sales reps are actually focused on time of selling. So where's that other 66%? And that percentage is actually decreasing. So obviously, the more time that our salespeople, which oftentimes is us in our solopreneur companies, the more time we can increase that time actually selling, promoting, networking, the more success we're going to have. And let's cut to the chase. Success in sales is really boiled down to one singular thing. It's the number of at-bats. So the more often we and our companies that we support can get in front of customers and prospects that may benefit from the value that we have, the more sales that we're going to get. It's that simple. Now, the trick is actually getting those meetings, right? And it's not just the quantity, more importantly, it's the quality of those type of interactions. So what are we dealing with? If you look at some of the things that have happened over time, when it comes to making decisions in more larger organizations, In the past, it was approximately 5. Well, by 2019, now there are at least 10 on the average people who are involved in making certain decisions of what to buy. So the salesperson, us in many cases, has to be aware of all of those 10 people. And all of those 10 people have different interests, different needs, different objectives, and they have to be addressed. The other critical piece that's happened is, of course, the internet, right? The world that we work in now. And all the information that someone can get to make a purchasing decision. And I'm not talking about just a transactional sale of something like an Amazon if you need to buy a new additional shampoo, for example, because obviously I use a lot of shampoo. But the consumers out there, and again, this is in a B2B environment, can get all of the information they need from the internet and come up with a decision, including the competitive information, the pricing, the comparisons, before they even speak to a salesperson, if in fact they do. The other reality is that our demographics, right? There's certain, millennials, we hear it, millennials. Well, the fact is that they will be in charge of more and more of all of the businesses that we operate within, right? And sell to and support. So they are much more technically savvy. And there's a lot that we can gain from that kind of knowledge, but there's certain expectations that audience has that may not be the same expectations that we used in the past. So we have digital buyers, they're highly educated buyers, it's group decision making. So there's many dynamics that have changed how we have to sell or how we have to be successful at selling. So, the other thing, more important, what did your B2B customers and prospects have to say? So McKinsey did a study, and I'm a big fan of data, validated data. And as I mentioned before, when they looked at these B2B decision makers, the fact is that video conferencing was preferred more often and has increased significantly. Now, obviously, COVID just hyper charged that move into this virtual environment. But guess what? It also moved folks into getting more of the information they need through chat bots, online chats. Quick example, we have a client, and they're also a manufacturing company. They focus on machine vision inspection systems. It's a real technical sale, and they have very highly specialized LED lighting. And their website needs to have a lot of information because engineers go there and look at specs and particular information. And when someone goes and is looking for that kind of product, which is a niche, obviously, what do? They go to the internet, right? They search it on Google. And once they get onto the site, that's when you have those eyeballs and their attention. And if they have any questions, if they don't have an opportunity to get that question answered, what happens? They go to another website. They're gone. You just lost that opportunity to engage. Now, the products they have are not, again, transactional. They require multiple steps in the sales process. However, if that engineer or person looking for something like that is on their website and they have a specific question, we incorporated a chat bot onto that website. And we saw that their sales and number of actual quotes for products increased by 11%. And it was just by being there at the right time, at the right place, when the audience was actually engaged with that company virtually. Here's the other reality. Do you believe that some of the changes our prospects and customers made because of COVID-19 will be permanent? Well, the facts show, the data shows that they are, and they will be. In fact, again, going back to this McKinsey study where they looked at several thousand B2B decision makers at multiple companies, sized companies in the B2B space, and had multiple verticals that were considered. They asked the simple question, what do you prefer? Well, As far as identifying new suppliers, okay, 31% still preferred in person, but that's 69%. They don't want to see you. They may want to see you virtually, but they don't want to necessarily meet with you. And, if you look at how things worked in the past, I come from, a sales background, many years in sales. And, the salespeople, us in often case, we were the internet, because if a customer or prospect was interested in something, we would be contacted, or we would, find through prospecting that they were interested, and we were the ones that would give them the information about what's going on in the industry, who the competitors are, what the technology is like, what things are happening. That's who did that. So we had a much more control of that conversation and that relationship. But that's just not what's happening anymore. So we need to be aware of it. We need to leverage it. And if we don't, we're going to pay the price. Right before we started speaking, Frank Sadal was making some comments. I'd sent this deck to the Beacon team just to check it out beforehand. And this goes back to a Forrester study, actually. I'm sorry, it was, this was Forrester. And they did a study in December of 2020. So it's still relatively timely. And they basically asked, again, B2B buyers, if you need to or would like to interact with your colleagues, your suppliers, sales reps, salespeople, and your existing customers, what is your preference? Not only today, but looking out a year from now, after COVID is no longer a factor. And you can see that every one of these situations, it's greater than 75%. So if we're going to be realistic about what's happening and what will continue to happen, what we're doing right now is the reality, right? This is how we need to operate. And this is the expectation of our customers. This is what they prefer over oftentimes face-to-face meetings. Now, so in this case, again, going back to that Forrester study, 79% of B2B companies said they are very or somewhat likely to sustain these shifts 12 months after COVID, right? So the question is, what does this mean to your company in 2021, and for that matter, in 2022? And the fact is, it means you have more time to meet with more customers, clients, and prospects. So from a sales perspective, it's been a boon. The companies like mine, for example, we have clients in Europe, right? It's the classic death of distance, meaning it was a book that was, I think, published in 2000 or 1999. But it's the concept that whether I'm here in the Philadelphia suburbs and someone else is in Hawaii, we can do business. In many service businesses that, for example, are here represented in Beacon. So the bottom line is that our geographies that we can penetrate into have significantly expanded. In fact, we have a client who's in Schenectady, New York, and they're a private equity portfolio company. Now, this company is a distributor, and they distribute commercial products, equipment, and services. And the bottom line is that they have offices up and down the East Coast as well. And I was referred into this client. They were struggling in 2019. In fact, a colleague of mine at Phoenix Management, which is a turnaround company, was asked by the bank to come in and assess the likelihood that the bank's going to get paid because they were struggling. And Phoenix Management did a really solid job of stabilizing their financials to keep them out of trouble, got things level set. And then I was referred in there to drive top line. Now that we have stability in our financial foundation, we can start to grow top line. And obviously the goal in this case for this client was to increase sales so we can increase EBITDA, because at some point, being a PE owned company, they would like to sell it, right? So it's kind of drive the EBITDA multiples was the real end game. At any rate, I have spent hours with both the CEO and the CFO. Great people, nice company. We're doing a really nice job with them. And I have never personally, in person, met and shook the hand of that CEO and that CFO and anyone in that company. And we have another client down in Texas, same situation. We have never actually personally met with these folks. So the fact is that it's a tremendous opportunity, if depending on the type of business you have, to expand your footprint. Now it goes both ways, right? That also means, and it's coming, is the fact that your competition, which may have been in, just for argument's sake, Toledo, Ohio, a really solid firm that does something similar to what you do, or a company that does something similar to what you do, that was regionally based. Well, nothing's stopping them to come right here in the Philadelphia market. So that's the other piece. If you don't do it, you're going to get competition from all directions. So what we want to do in this breakout sessions is let's have a chat about our respective companies and our respective clients. Obviously, confidentiality is key there, but what has your experience been? What have you done? And what has worked to be more effective, to increase sales in this next normal that all of us are operating within? So Amy and Zoe, I'll let you take control. Do I need to stop sharing so that you can do the breakout sessions? Oh, so you're waiting for me. I guess I'm supposed to lead this discussion.
Everyone's.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, welcome back. In our group, we had some really good insights. Maria, for example, and please help me out here, team, if I missed something. But she actually was at a client, well, wasn't at a client site, and the client was in a manufacturing environment, and they actually were kind of videoing in real time and speaking to Maria, right? That's just fascinating to me. That wow, talk about virtual, right? And and Maria had mentioned that it worked. It worked pretty good, actually. So think about that. And Jeff was talking about it's tough to manage teams because it sounds like in Jeff's world, he often has to corral the cats to get everybody on the same page. And not being in person, it's tough, when you just have a quick question and you just need a quick answer to something pretty simple. Being virtual makes it more challenging to do that. And then I mentioned, how about Slack, right? Which is a tool that a lot of folks are using to kind of fill in those little quick questions and answers. And then Allison, who's actually in the commercial AV business, her experience now is that folks are starting to come back, but all of the clients seem to really be focused on a hybrid environment where some folks are coming in, some folks aren't, they're switching back and forth. And I'll quote you, Allison. She says that Zoom is a huge time saver. And one of the other things that I brought up was recruiting for talent. We have another client, and I mentioned Toledo earlier, Toledo, Ohio, just kind of coincidentally. Maybe it was just in the back of my head. But we needed a sales leader, a sales manager for one of our clients. And we ended up finding a really sharp person in Toledo, Ohio. Now, this company is in Bristol, Pennsylvania. And historically, that person would have had to reside in near the Bristol, Pennsylvania area. But that's no longer the case. And so we've kind of worked out process flows, communication flows, and responsibilities so that hybrid or in person all work. So we've thought that through. And, Toledo, Ohio is frankly a less expensive place than the Philadelphia suburbs, right? So we got really talented person at a lower cost. So it really just opens up the U.S. for talent as well. So that was our input. So I'll pass the baton to another group.
Newell, you want to expand on our groups?
Sure. 4 people in our group, 2 of whom really got kicked off in their businesses during the pandemic, so didn't feel they had a real good comparison point for customer contact and establishing a business pipeline prior to the pandemic. Everyone expressed, interest in a lot of what Mark is talking about in, the ways of doing things. Third member of our group expanded business dramatically last year by providing a service that could be done remotely. And I was probably the sole exception. I do consulting with manufacturing companies, and specifically I do a lot of shop floor work. And that's been rather challenging for me because the value I provide is face-to-face, helping people learn new ways of doing things, rearranging the shop floor, and facilitating a lot of projects on the shop floor. So for me, it's been kind of challenging maintaining or establishing new customer contacts.
Was there another group?
Yeah, I'll take it for our group. Just in general, we spent a lot of time introducing each other, but I think some of the things that came out from, just evolution through the pandemic were one person was trying to build a sales force that they didn't really have before the pandemic. So they're building it in this whole digital kind of environment. And then another person was more on delivery of, I think Robin, I don't see her, but I assume she's still here, of, custom fit, clothing for men, and doing that through artificial intelligence and virtually, a service that years ago, my reaction would be that has to be in person, but that's how things have evolved, and through this environment, and how things can continue to evolve. So it's really amazing how that can occur.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And was there another group?
Yeah, I'll take it. Our group was Linda and Helen and myself, and we're all involved in the sales process, and it appears that we've all embraced this new technology, which in effect saves a lot of time with clients. We all noted that the whole idea of building trust quickly is not as easy on Zoom, but it's achievable for sure. I think the whole pandemic thing just pushed this technology way far ahead of where it would be otherwise. So in the end, it does save a lot of time, and we still have some people that aren't embracing it. They get on a Zoom call on the phone, which is kind of interesting, but otherwise, it's all good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Did we miss anyone?
That was all the groups.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right, I'm going to get back to this.
And
So
remember, this is interactive, guys. So actually, before you start, Mark,
yeah, go ahead.
let's see if people had questions for the first part of the discussion. Okay, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. You too. My question was, when you were going through your slides, I couldn't help but think that was wondering what the cross section of for who was polled, the types of organizations, because as we've heard here, maybe some of the traditional organizations like manufacturing may have had a different response than some of the, maybe the technology or SaaS or new types of organizations that may have been more, prone to prefer remote. So I'm just wondering if you had any access to drill downs on the cross sections of those, because I believe my hypothesis at least would be that there'd be different answers depending on the
industry,
goods versus services, size, that kind of thing. Industry.
Yeah. Well, the Forrester study that was done in 2020 December, it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, and it's referenced in my presentation. I can send you the link. But they looked at 1,500 different B2B companies in manufacturing services across the board, different sizes too. So that's another factor, and different parts of the world. So most of it was the U.S., but it wasn't only the U.S. So that's where the data came from. And the other thing, it was the decision makers. They were asking about decision makers. And I can speak from my own experience. For example, we have a handful of manufacturing companies as clients, and one of them in particular was able to continue to manufacture because of what they make during COVID. And so that was interesting. But the leadership team, the management, the salespeople, obviously that I am helping to support, we all went virtual. So that was the source, and that was the audience. I can send you the link, Mark.
It's also a note, someone asked about the slides related to 50% of the sales force is now millennial. There was a comment you had with something about millennials and being 50%, and just wanted clarification on that slide.
Sure. Let me, I might as well just, there's actually one. There you go.
That one, yes.
Yep. So, yeah. That came from Chris Harrington, who is the CEO of a company called Xant, X-A-N-T.
Yep.
That was September 20, when that particular statement was made. And you can look it up, actually, in, I guess, the Census Bureau. And what the millennials go up to, I mean, they're obviously now almost, reaching into their 40s, like the front end. So think about all the people you interact with at that age group. So,
yeah.
And that's going to increase, as folks like myself decline.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Mark, I'm glad you brought the slide up, because I thought it was 50% of the sales force. So it's the workforce. Thank you for
Correct.
clarifying. Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
Mark,
Go ahead,
sorry.
please.
One of the interesting points that I kind of saw off of this was, I mean, as I kind of think about things and just working with companies, is that, as the business decision makers go up, what's been interesting over the last year is more and more companies now, even if they've gone back in the office or their manufacturing company, and they have, obviously have, the plant and the operations, their executive team and their corporate team aren't in that same spot anymore. They're either still remote, or they've hired people from, other places. As you said, hey, I could hire my controller in Toledo and it's cheaper, and they do the same job as if they're sitting, 2 doors down from me. And so even if you go to say, hey, I want to, let's meet in person, their team's not in person. So it ends up being a virtual meeting. So the world's definitely, shifted for, foreseeable future, if not forever.
Right.
So embracing the technology is extremely key.
Yep.
Maria, Mark mentioned in your group, I believe you were the one who did the manufacturing location, and yet you were the only one on Zoom, or were there multiple people on Zoom, and how did that work? And you're on mute.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yes, no, there were multiple. Actually, it was I won't tell you the company, but it was actually manufacturing of a manufacturing environment. And they were making, I'll say widgets, and it was them. So they had cameras, they had their cameras. We were both on Zoom. And as they showed me what the process was, then I was marking down my notes and giving them feedback. And I have to tell you, it was pretty painful to do it because I like being, when I am doing manufacturing or even support processes, I like to be on the floor with the employees. But it ended up successful. So yes, it was both ways.
Okay. Oh, good. All right. Any other comments or questions for Alex? No, sorry, not Alex. Alex just joined. That's why his. Why I said Alex. Alex, welcome. Any other questions or comments for Mark?
I have
Mark.
one. This is Matt. So basically, the concept of chatbot is actually a really big one. What we have found in implementing our chatbot through our digital marketing investment. So we actually increased our digital marketing investment substantially through COVID because that was the only way we were going to get access to people. What we have found with the chatbot, though, is it's a constant review of the data to tweak the process because a lot of these people that come into our site, they come to us because they want answers to very specific technical problems, but we're having a challenge in actually converting them into actual opportunities to the point where they kind of game the system. Hey, I went to your blog. Most of them come from our technical blogs, right? So they go to Google, they search Azure AD, on-premise AD to Azure AD. They find us, we come up in the top, page of Google. But when they go to our site, they go to the chatbot to ask questions that we don't answer intentionally, right? That's the whole purpose of the blog is you give them 95%. We're not going to give away the farm. So then when they come to us, they expect answers. So is there any insight into optimizing the chatbot as a sales opportunity engine? Because that's kind of what's been missing for us. We get upwards of 50, 60 conversations a month, and we're just getting started. And we're really struggling with the conversion into, kind of qualifying those because they game the chatbot, right? One idea that we had was do it as a block of hours. Hey, we get that you want an answer. If you want access to our engineer, here, go buy a block of hours. You'll get access to an engineer, within 4 hours. What are you seeing, other clients and how do they address this stuff? Because technology can also be used as a weapon and a distraction. And that's kind of where I feel like we are. Any thoughts there?
No,
So I'm going to ask that we hold that one
Okay.
to the end because Mark's going to go through some of these sales techniques first, and Matt, stay with that one, and we may be able to give you ideas on that.
Okay.
But I don't want to miss the rest of Mark, so we will get to that one. So thank you for bringing that up because I think there are a couple of others, and even Maria put in that's exactly what Comcast and Verizon does. So she's on the customer side looking for an answer too. So
yeah, and no, it's a
hold on to
phenomenal
that
question.
one. Yep.
Phenomenal question, and Matt, even if we don't have time, we'll connect, which I think we already are scheduled to, and talk about that and share what folks are doing successfully to manage that. I think the takeaway is that's where, a lot of the customers are going, right? It kind of validates what I'm saying. So, okay, now we're there, the customer's there.
Right.
How do we change our behavior to turn that latent interest into ultimately a transaction between two parties, right? So great topic, and we can talk about it. All right. So
also, this is where, we've talked about the theory with, okay, everything's virtual and there's some that is still inside or in person, but now we want to do various things. So Mark's now going to tell us how do we do that. So
thank you, Amy. Yeah, we're going to talk about some tools that many of our, well, let me just first say that, the next normal for sales and marketing, again, this is specific to sales. And I think, I think it was Maria in our little discussion mentioned that, well, I'm not in sales. And I raised my eyebrow. And then she said, well, I guess I am in sales, right? Because even though her actual skill isn't sales, in order to get clients, yeah, you're in sales. All of us are. So that's a fact. And so some of these things I hope will help those folks who aren't, salespeople to improve their pipeline and business. So there's just so much going on there, right? In as far as sales tech, Marcon tech, it's just crazy, multimedia prospecting cadences, chat bots, we talk about it, of course, CRMs, integrating meeting schedulers. I mean, just video, email, it's all over the place, right? And this real busy slide kind of just shows, you don't have to pay too much attention to it. It just illustrates that there's so many tools out there. It's confusing and overwhelming. And frankly, I am not a highly technical person. So I'm not the one oftentimes who's configuring these things. There's other folks who are much better at that than I am. I look at these things as tools, just like a carpenter would have a particular screwdriver, or a mechanic would have a particular screwdriver for a particular maintenance that they would need to do. It's the same thing. What is the right tool for the right situation? And I also want to point out that, again, Innovo, myself, has no vested interest in any of these. We don't get anything by mentioning them. These are some of the things that we've used, our clients used, and we know that they work, right? And they're relatively inexpensive and relatively easy to deploy, right? And so let's just get started. So first of all, here's the list we're going to go through. Calendly, Vidyard, Sales Navigator, that's a LinkedIn product. Seamless.io, Reply, love that tool. And Crystal Knows, that's an interesting one that all of us could use, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. So let's first look at Calendly, and I'm curious, and Calendly is one of many tools that folks use to improve or remove the hassle of going back and forth with someone to arrange a meeting. I'm curious, how many folks use something like Calendly to manage their calendars and to get meetings set up? I'm going to expand because here's the reality in sales, because that's what I'm going to focus on. And it's true with even consultants. We want to decrease the friction between ourselves and our customers and prospects. And when I say friction, I just mean like the extra steps. I want to make it as easy as possible to arrange a time to have a conversation with me in my company, right? And vice versa. And oftentimes, folks will have their little Calendly link at the bottom of their email. I oftentimes, in fact, almost always, depending on the situation, you can set it up. If you pay for the service, by the way, you can use it free, but their paid service is pretty cheap. I think it's less than $200 a year. But you can brand it as well and set up, very highly specific meetings for specific things, specific times, and it's right on my browser. So I just click it, and if I might send 3 specific days. And I used to think, it's kind of bold of me to ask someone who might be interested in speaking with me to work around my calendar, right? I was a little hesitant about that for that reason. But what I found is when I include these things and I include multiple dates and times, it actually makes it easier for them. And I always state that, hey, if none of these work, let me know. I'm flexible. I can work, let me know what time and day would work for you, right? So I'm not making it a requirement. It just speeds things up. It really does. And the one thing that all of these things do, amongst many other kind of ancillary things, they save time. That's one resource we don't get back, and it is limited each day, each minute. So take a
Mark,
look at
I
that.
also have mine connected to my website.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, again, any of these types of, whether it's bookings within the teams,
Mhm.
you know, Calendly, Time Trade, whatever you use, have it available for your clients, or not clients, prospects. So they can do it, you know, anywhere. And I just find that asking them to do it partly qualifies them
Good point.
as
Very good point.
interested in connecting with you.
Right. If they're serious, then they'll go and do it. And right. So, and it, you know, it sends a reminder, you know, you can set it up a day before, an hour before, whatever you like. It automatically sends the, you know, I happen to use Google, but it works with Outlook and all the other email providers. And it sends an email to them, and they click, and it's now in their calendar. And it's a wonderful, simple, very effective tool, one of many. All right. Ooh, I love this one. You know, we talk about video, right? And people prefer video over phone calls. Why? Well, when humans communicate, approximately, I'm sure folks can challenge me on this, but approximately 20% of what I communicate, you're hearing, like just the actual content, right? It's only 20% of the amount of information our brains are processing when we communicate. The other approximately 80% is facial gestures, eye contact, body language. We don't even think about it, but it's so inherent in how humans communicate that this tool allows me to send quick video emails. It's on my browser. I click a button and I just start recording, right? And I'm going to share one. I hope this works. Oh, good. Here we go. Hello, Horizon Bradco. Let me just state that this was sent, actually, I think it was a week and a half ago or so. It was to a client. And this particular client, we executed the game plan, which was to get their sales up. So their EBITDA went up. And they were purchased at a very, very high multiple, more than they would have gotten beforehand. So the other part about my business is I work myself out of a job, right? Once we get things rolling and cooking, we have the process in place, the people in place, the cadence, you know, it's like my work is done and now they can lather, rinse, repeat. So this is what each of these members, including the CEO and CFO, received.
Rockstar salespeople. We're not going to have our sales team meeting tomorrow, Friday, and it's my last full day with my good friends at Horizon Bradco and 5 Stars. So I just wanted to leave a message for everyone that's been involved in this journey over the last 6 months. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed working with each of you, and I think we accomplished, in fact, I know we accomplished a lot of positive things, and you have a great team.
So hopefully you get the idea that now I also use these quick videos, and you can record them and send the same ones out to multiple people. So if you're in the service business, you can record videos, you know, instructional videos, right? Someone asked about, you know, for example, Matt asked about if there's specific, I suppose, Microsoft tools or processes or that customers are asking about all the time. It's all right, do the video that explains that very quickly and simply. And when that question comes up, boom, you send that out, right? And that helps. So, but when I send these, and I can use them as a prospecting tool as well, you'll see when you get them, and I know some of you have gotten them from me, you'll see a very quick kind of snippet of, there's no sound, but it's me moving and my big mouth moving, right? And it just repeats itself. It's on a loop. And human nature, when we see something moving that's in our line of sight, we have no choice but to look at it. We have to, because our lizard brains think, oh, something's moving in my line of sight. It could be something dangerous, right? So right there, you're going to get more attention. And in fact, if you use the word video in the subject line of an email with other descriptions like, hey, Amy, I made this video for you about our meeting, or the word, if the video's in there in a subject line, those emails with that word will get opened up approximately 22% more often than a flat email that didn't have that word, right? People like video. Now, I wouldn't say this is novel, because you're starting to see it more often, but it is still kind of newer, and it's still effective. So that's a great tool for prospecting. It's a great tool for just follow up. And frankly, it saves me time too, because as you can tell, I'd rather talk than sit down and try to write the same message. It's getting more across. So check it out. And by the way, Anovo, we use their paid version, which allows us to brand. You saw when I showed it to you, it showed our brand. And it can also link into your website, where there's many other things it can do. But for the immediate moment, we kind of use it for its basic value. Okay. All right. Sales Navigator, which is part of LinkedIn. We're all on LinkedIn. But from a sales perspective, Sales Navigator is LinkedIn on steroids. Let me give you an example. We have a client, and they're in the software business. They're a SaaS company, and their prospects are highly educated PhDs. Typically, they're in the quality assurance, regulatory affairs departments within large pharmaceutical companies, biotechs, and contract research organizations. So it's a pretty savvy audience, and this software improves process flows for the things that those folks do, and also make sure that there's audit trails, because they're highly regulated by the FDA and other regulatory bodies. So what we needed to do is they had a nice, I guess, bullpen, if you will, of existing customers, right? Quite a few. They've been around for a while. And so we used Sales Navigator with all the contacts that we had they use Salesforce in their CRM, and cross-reference that in Sales Navigator. And we asked Sales Navigator to tell us which of all of these contacts changed positions in the last 6 months. The idea being, if it was someone who had been using our software at one company and now has moved to another company, because like most industries, it's fairly incestuous, that person would be a great person to contact and say, hey, what are you using at your new company? Oh, it's not our stuff. Okay, good. Let's talk about who we might speak with to get our solution into your workflows, right? So that's the kind of power that Sales Navigator has, and it has many more things. Now, that one is a little pricey. And by the way, at the end of this, and I can ask Zoe to send it out to folks, is links to all these different tools as well with prices, so you can get a sense of their costs. Okay, this one, I mentioned before in sales, whether it's B2B or B2C, but mostly in B2B, it's all about the number of at-bats, and it's not just the number of opportunities to talk about your solutions, your products, your services, and the problems they solve, but it's about quality at-bats. And this is basically a database of contacts, and they've taken it to another level using AI. So when you look up somebody or do a search on a company or titles or however you want to slice and dice, it could be geography, any number of ways to identify it. This will actually kind of scrub the internet for public information that particular contact produced. And the outcome of that is you get, their LinkedIn profile, but you also often get their mobile phone, right? Not always, but often, because someone may have written an article or mentioned something somewhere in the past throughout their digital life, and it picks that up. And it also, you can then very easily export it immediately directly into your CRM, whatever CRM you happen to be using. So now that's part of your kind of contact database in one place. Interesting product. We like it. Just coincidentally, Zoom Info, which is another big player in that space, they just acquired a company that does something very similar to this. It just literally just happened, if I'm not mistaken, within the last couple of days. But Zoom Info is the big player in that space for contacts. And they obviously saw the value of that as well. This reply.io is what I refer to as the poor man's marketing automation tool. So if you're a smaller company or even on your own, we use it here at Innovo, but our number of clients use it also. It's the idea that you want to create a cadence, a prospecting cadence. In other words, if you're targeting a company or a number of key people, your salespeople are, or you are, that you want to get a conversation going with, well, think about it. We're all getting more emails than we've ever gotten. In fact, I read something that we're receiving approximately 50% more emails than we did prior to COVID. That was kind of the default for so many companies to do that. And to try to get through that pile, all those emails and say, hey, I have something I want to talk to you about. I think it's valuable to you. Using a cadence, meaning it's pre-written, it's automated. So once one goes out, you tell it when to send the second one that you pre-wrote. The other key thing, and this is just a tip for everybody, if you use any kind of these tools, it's critical that they be personalized, right? So if you're sending, I sent out a newsletter to many of you folks probably get it. It's kind of a digital kind of little note, some ideas that we share in our experiences. But if it's not personalized, because this will come out of your Outlook or whatever emails you're using, and it'll look exactly like an email as if you wrote it yourself. So say, hi, Amy, how are things going at Turner, CFO practice, and it can do multiple of these, and it's a great tool. It's very inexpensive. It's easy to set up, and once you set it up, this is the benefit, right? Now, while you're doing other things, maybe taking care of your clients, behind the scenes, this tool is prospecting for you, right? So it's, again, automation. You're doing two things at once, saving time and getting better results. A good example of this is it's actually a buddy of mine. He's an investment banker, and he was doing what most of us has done in the past, kind of copy and pasting emails. He had targeted folks. Yes, he was using LinkedIn to kind of engage as well, which you still need to do, by the way. But it was very time consuming, right, to do that at a scaling it up, right? You may want to be doing that, towards 100 people. So I introduced him to this, and this is about 2 months ago. He called me back and he goes, God, this thing is a lifesaver. It's been just such a great tool. And I do know he had shared with me about a month ago that he and his boss were out on the West Coast and had 7 meetings set up to talk about their investment banking services. So it's a good tool. This will be the last one. This one blew me away when I saw it. It's called Crystal Knows. And again, can send you the links for this. But many of us are familiar with disk profiling, right? It's a little scary too. So, and it's on my browser. It's connected to LinkedIn. So if I go and find a particular person that I'm going to be meeting with that I've never met with before. Good example, this a client is no longer, actually, we're not working with them anymore, but they were a client. And I was referred in, and that's when we had face-to-face meetings. And I could tell that from a disc perspective, he was more on the quieter side. He wasn't like me, you know, kind of animated and higher energy. So I gathered that he's very likely more either an S or C, a little more conservative. And I'm a D, which is the driver, a DI to be specific. And, you know, we like to get things done, right? We're goal oriented. Yeah, we're big picture focused, but like we go after it, right? Which in this case, the CEO is more of a C, which is more compliant, right? They like lots of information. They don't like to make decisions. They need time. They need data. They need to think things through. And there's certainly nothing wrong with being either of those. It's just how they process information. So using Crystal Knows prior to this meeting, the second meeting actually, sure enough, the CEO was more on the C side. And I knew, knowing that how he likes to make decisions is not how I like to make decisions or am able to make decisions. So I never kind of asked him for the order throughout our initial discussions. And usually it's about 2 meetings before the client and I decide to work together. This one took 3. And between the second and third one, I sent him a Word document of the engagement agreement and with an email say, hey, Don, I know we haven't gotten to this point yet, but I thought it would be valuable for you to see what the agreement looks like. It's in Word, so feel free to, you know, mark it up if you have any questions and whatnot, because he likes information. He doesn't like to be forced into things. And I wanted him to process that before we met. And the bottom line is that he became a client, right? So knowing how the audience, or in this case, my prospect, prefers to communicate, prefers to make decisions is exceptionally valuable, because then I can adapt to that, or at least recognize that, because as a D, you know, I can make decisions. I don't need all the information. You know, if it's a bit ambiguous, if there's ambiguity, I'm you know, still able to make a decision. Now, admittedly, sometimes the wrong ones, but nonetheless, that's how I'm wired. And my client was not wired that way, and a D like myself can irritate a C pretty quickly, because we're just we approach things too differently. So that's a phenomenal tool. Yeah, if someone sends me a note, I can, and what this does, it looks at the individual's profile, and you don't have to be connected with them. And they then look at all the other publicly available social media. So if you're on Facebook or Twitter or the other places, it also gathers that information and creates a disc profile around that individual. And I would say, based on my experience, that it's about 90% accurate, right? Which is pretty good, just based on that kind of preliminary screening from their profile and other digital media sources.
Have you used that, Mark, in just virtually? Because you said you could validate it because you met him also, this client. Have you used it where you've met somebody just virtually with the same thing and validated it that way?
Absolutely. In fact, that's mostly how I do it now.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if I'm going to have a meeting with someone I was referred to, I'm going to do this disc profile. Now, I'm not going to bank on it, but it's really valuable to get a sense of how this person likely prefers to process information and communicate and make decisions, right? It's exceptionally valuable.
I really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's not that expensive. I mean, the prices have gone up because I think they've gotten more popular. But that's a pretty cool tool that all of us, whether you're a salesperson or you have your own company and firm. So let me just move on to this. This is just these different tools. And again, I can get this out to folks. The bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's gotten more challenging to be successful in this next normal from a sales perspective, and many other areas too, but my focus is sales. But what we've seen, that it's been a tremendous opportunity to be more successful if we embrace these realities, use these realities and these tools, and we have to incorporate, a different sales process. I mentioned before that we can also hire folks that may not necessarily be in our region and have just as much and oftentimes greater success because the pool of opportunities opens up significantly. And these tools and these processes, bottom line, allow us to do more often, and allow us to get more at-bats, quality at-bats, and that will result in greater sales. So here's my contact information. So if you were an organization or are working with a company or as a colleague of yours who is interested in turbocharging their sales results, would love to get an introduction. So thank you. I'm going to quit there.
Thank you. All
Sure.
right. Questions for Mark?
We want to go back to Matt.
Sure. There was a lot of chats going back and forth also. So Matt, I think you.
We already solved it.
Okay.
No,
All right.
just kidding. I mean, I think it's more about letting the data kind of drive the decisions. I don't think, obviously there's no simple answer. Otherwise, I wouldn't even been asking it. But
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out there to see what other people in their use of the chatbot technology have found to be effective to convert, the interested parties into actual opportunities to get them scheduled, right?
Sure.
Because that's the goal, is really, and our thing that we found is it's not effective to have it as a directory tree. People get really frustrated if it's automated responses. It has to be with an actual person at the other end. So that's all we do. And if no one's at the other end, it says it online. Like, we're fully transparent. People get really frustrated when they feel like they're being gamed.
Yeah.
But the goal really is to get them on a call with the actual engineer. Like, that is the end goal. So, I'm just curious, like, what other people have found to be effective,
Do you capture their contact information before you kind of move them on to the next step?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And
Good.
we have the analytics to be able to see that. There's not a lot of people that provide that, so that's a qualifying indicator itself, right?
Absolutely.
If they're not going to provide the email and the phone number, then
Yep.
they're going to disappear from the chatbot, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, we capture the email and the phone number for sure.
We can talk about simple, quick drop downs too, just to kind of calibrate what type of question it is. Maybe you have that in there, but there is a bit of an automated process at the beginning just to screen, right? And just to delegate. And, one of the other basic things is to have a link to set up a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Right there. So it's kind of on your calendar now versus their immediate.
We actually did that too. We had the calendar integration through Microsoft Bookings directly through the chatbot, and we found that to be a barrier because a lot of them would schedule it and then not show up on the call. So we kind of had a mixed result with that. So we removed that, and then we just we kind of just have the salesperson follow-up. But yeah, that's something that I actually documented when you were talking, the scheduling integration and what Amy said too, because that's
Yeah.
something that we might want to look at, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, reintroducing it.
But in the end, it is all about the data, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we can go down the rabbit hole of lead scoring, and there's some AI tools for that, and like who's the
Right.
real deal and who's not, to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, sort of thing. But yeah, the good news is that, you know, people are, you know, using the internet and going to your site, and rather than what we might traditionally do in the past, you know, make a phone call or send an email into an info site. They're right there. Boom. They have a problem. They have a question. They want an answer. We want it now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah, that was the other thing too we found, is that when we looked at the you know, the SEO and the analytics on our site, we saw a lot of people going to the contact us form, but they were not filling it out. They were not filling it out. 0, 0, 0, 0 for months. So that's when we put the chatbot as the focus. And that's when we started seeing people engaging, because they didn't want to fill out a form. In fact, they didn't even want to send an email. They just wanted an answer.
And they want it now.
And they want it right now, and they're impatient. And welcome to the crowd, you know, club. So I mean, yeah. So that was, I'm glad that you were on the same page with that. I mean, we actually have a call for tomorrow too. I just looked, so.
No, I'm looking forward to it. So go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say, so any other questions? I think that's good. You guys have a further talk. You guys can come up with some ideas and let the group know, Matt, with that question, you know, how it works. If you make changes, let us know how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same thing, I'd love to hear if this has been helpful for people, if you make any changes, if you use any of the technology that Mark will be sending out. We're going to get that sent to everyone. If that is helping you at all, you know, let Mark know. Okay, let us know, because I think that's a good way of, number one, that we've provided good information. And then the other is just a testimonial for this type of thing. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And if you, as you get into any of these or have questions, give me a call or you know, send me an email, whatever. I mean, we're all part of, that's right. We're all part of the Beacon community. So, you know, if it's just, I love talking shops, and I'd be happy to help just to provide some assistance, right? So let me know.
I think Charlie made a really good point. Charlie, you want to read out your comment there?
Okay. So this is not an original idea of mine. I always steal things, excuse me, I curate things from other people more knowledgeable than myself. But the sales activities that Mark's talking about, that list of different tools you can use, they help create conversations. Those conversations can lead to mutually beneficial, trusted relationships with people that matter, who then may offer us a referral to someone where we can uncover viable opportunities that we can address, and that may turn into a sales transaction for ourselves. So it takes a lot of work to be successful in all of our practices. And Mark, I really want to thank you for opening up and sharing your secret sauce with people, because that's what Beacon members do for other Beacon members. We try to make one another successful so that we're hanging around so we can be more helpful to other people as they join us. And this is a reason why people should become members of Beacon. These videos that we're creating demonstrate to people that, wait a minute, here's a group that really cares for one another. So thank you, Amy.
Yep. While you've got the on off mute, why don't you talk about the BNR, which is coming up?
Yeah, next Wednesday morning from 8 to 10:30, we're having another BNR. We've had 47 of them to date. Some of you on this particular call hosted a BNR. Matt, you gotta attend one of these BNRs, because you have challenges or issues that you would like to throw out to a number of members and get their collective feedback to try to help you solve those challenges. And that's what this is about. So if any of you call on senior leaders who who are trying to build community and trust and culture within their organizations. The presenter, Joe Campisi, is someone who represents a company that has training programs for those leaders in those companies that has proven very successful. One of our members, Mike Brenner, is associated with that particular company, speaks very highly of them. And again, we are all trusted advisors to our clients. So the more we know what's available to them, the more valuable we become to them, and we keep them as our clients. So just go to the calendar of events, register for the meeting. All are invited, and guests are invited as well. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, the BNR, I have to do a shout out specifically. I did a BNR, I was the host of it, and it was talking about how should I do something related to loans and helping clients to fill out the loan applications, because I know all about it and everything else. And I got great, again, you get 12 people here that you get to select if they were interested. You get to select which ones are there. And now because it's virtual, we actually can have more as well. But they gave me great ideas on how to do it, how to price it, and things like that. Well, lo and behold, in 2020, with the pandemic, I helped people with the PPPs, with the EIDL loan applications, and all that detail that I'd learned from people. It was fabulous, because then I was able to go, oh, right, I figured out how to do this from the BNR. And it all came back, and I was able to utilize all of those expertise that I was given from those 12 business leaders. So really do set yourself up. The BNRs are a great way of giving back. And when you're in it, you also learn from everybody else. So it's another plug.
And I'll leave it at this. If you are, a consultant, a solopreneur, or even a smaller company, service provider, for example, the most effective way to get introduced to new prospects is through networking. And and all of our clients, all of them, exception of one, have been through referrals. And when I started this little, I call it my taco stand, I don't know, about 5 years ago, I committed to having no less than 10 referral partner meetings every week. And the main thing about referral partnering is ask not what your referral partner can do for you. Ask what you can do for them. That has to be the approach. How can I help this colleague first? Do that first and be genuine about it. If you can, because you always can. It will come back, right? It will come back. But for us, there you go. Go Giver. Thank you, Charlie. There it is.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.